that 79% of Canadians are not even aware that Canadian law provides no protection whatsoever for children up until that magical moment of birth. So I want to inform people that, in fact, that's the way our law reads, and I want them to start thinking about whether or not that's what it should read, and whether or not anyone is safe if a law can exist which says that you're not a human being, and without any real reason for saying that.
Conservative MP Stephen Woodworth talking about his motion. A motion in the House of Commons calling for a study and debate on an issue. This is not a private member's bill on abortion. This is a motion about when human life begins and calls on MPs to study the science behind it. Well, one group that appears to be afraid of science and doesn't know how babies are made is the Canadian Medical Association. The lobbyist group for doctors is holding their general council in Yellowknife right now, and they've made some gobsmackingly stupid comments on this issue. Joining me now to talk more about that is Andrea Mrozek. She is with the Institute for Marriage and Family Canada, blogs at Pro Women, Pro Life. Andrea, you tipped me off to this morning. I tend to just gloss over these, but doctors don't seem to know what's going on in terms of medical issues here, do they?
Yeah, when you're working to defend an obvious fiction, that's a hard thing to do. So the best thing to do is to shut down debate. And it's clearly a very political statement made by a very, very, very slim percentage of doctors. I looked into it, and 0.4, some odd, less than 0.5% of doctors are actually in Yellowknife right now in Canada.
But these are all doctors say this, is how some of the media stories coming out of this.
Well, and the media reporting has glossed over that fact. The membership was not polled. The way I picture it coming up is over beers after the day's work on committee is done, and somebody saying, hey, did you hear about this thing in Parliament? And doctors, I don't know that necessarily doctors were informed about this. Nonetheless, it's definitely a disappointing thing. And the thing that's most alarming is I think that if you went to see these doctors, they would treat you well if you were a pregnant woman with a wanted child. They wouldn't pretend it's not a human being. They really are engaging in the worst kind of political work. It's not medical, it's not physiological. They know it, we know it. But in defense of their already pre-existing statement in defense of abortion, they're carrying it forward by saying we have to vote against this.
The motion, though, we'll get to one of the statements in a minute. We'll put it up on the screen for the audience to see. But one of them actually said, and I don't expect doctors to know the ins and outs of politics and the difference between a motion and a bill. But in the Post-media story, and I blogged about this at liliespad.ca, one of the doctors quoted said, "This motion could overturn Roe v. Wade." That's a U.S. Supreme Court decision that only applies in the United States. A motion couldn't overturn a law or a court ruling in Canada, yet they're going around saying it'll overturn a court ruling in the States. The health reporter, the veteran health reporter, and the editors just let this stuff go through. I mean, this is fear-mongering at its worst in support of abortion, as far as I can tell.
I sure do hope that was an American doctor working in Canada. I can't think of any other way to explain that kind of mistake. And I certainly have...
She's from Victoria. She practices in Victoria.
Well, yeah, she's practicing in Canada. So that's an especially... you know, the exaggeration is incredible there that something happening in Canada could affect the United States. Absolutely impossible, and it should have been up to the editors and the writer to figure that one out and put a stop to that kind of thing. But really, it's such a fiction, and doctors across the country know it. And as I already said, they would treat you well if you were a pregnant woman with a wanted child, and they would understand that. So they can't go forward and support something politically once a little bit of the abortion status, the abortion-friendly status quo crumbles. It calls into question the whole game. The game is up. So they're really holding that line. Well,
let me show you one other quote that I think is really, really just, I don't know what to say about it. This is Dr. Geneviève Desbiens says, this constitutes, she's talking about Motion 312, this constitutes the criminalization of abortion or any form of contraception. This change could even prevent a pregnant woman from traveling or taking certain drug treatments. I think we all know how babies are made. I think we know the difference between contraception and abortion. This is a motion. It can't criminalize abortion, but let's say it went down that road and criminalized abortion. How do you leap to saying it's going to criminalize contraception?
I wondered if that was the first open statement that we'll see from a doctor's suggesting that the pill, the birth control pill, oral contraceptives actually do work in an abortifacient way. That is by killing an unborn child rather than preventing the creation of that unborn child.
Or maybe they're talking about the morning after pill.
Which is an ongoing debate, but something that many pro-choice doctors will vociferously say and stress that the pill never works in an abortifacient way. I don't know what she's talking about. I'm not convinced she knows what she's talking about. It's a really...
But that scares me because she's a doctor. That doctor was from Montreal.
But she's meandering into politics. And here's what's scary is it's a very, very self-selecting group of doctors who are going to head up to Yellowknife in the middle of August. And I'm not meaning to be as disparaging as this will sound, but I'm not sure we got the sharpest knives in the drawer at this particular committee meeting of the CMA.
Neither am I. Here's part of what I think is going on, though. They want to do whatever they can to shut down debate on this because I think if you study it objectively, from the science, and you say, when does human life begin? And you look at all the ultrasound technology we have now, the 3D, the 4D, all the advances in medical technology since we had our own Supreme Court decision, which, by the way, is called Morgenthaler. I think that once you look at all the scientific breakthroughs and where we are and our medical and scientific understanding, you say human life begins at conception, and that abortion kills a human being and ends a life. And I don't think that they want to deal with that.
No. The irony is that medical textbooks today are teaching medical students precisely that life is a continuum. It starts at conception and goes till after birth, etc. It stretches across this period of time from conception onwards. Medical textbooks say that. That's a quote you will find medical students learning today. So some of these doctors are in obvious political mode, and the best way to shut down debate on this particular issue, whether you're a medical professional with an MD behind your name or not, is to frame it as an issue of women's rights and shut it down that way, because nobody seems to have the courage to stand up and say that abortion is not part of women's rights. It doesn't contribute to women's rights. It doesn't empower. It's a sad, sad journey for the many women who have abortions in Canada today.
All right, Andrea Mrozek, thanks so much. Share your thoughts on Facebook. I've linked to my blog post there. You can go on, tell me what you think. Are the doctors just scared of science?